Frozen is one of the most successful and popular Disney movies to ever be released. As soon as the movie came out in 2013, it was instantly a massive hit. And I mean, around that time, you could not go anywhere without seeing something Frozen. It did incredibly well at the box office and at the time was the highest grossing animated film. And that meant it was also critically acclaimed that won it countless awards. And when a kids' film like Frozen is so well received, well, they decided to make a sequel. And when Frozen 2 came out in 2019, it did better than the original, overtaking it at the box office. So it's clear that the Frozen franchise is very popular. But how were Disney able to keep up that popularity for so long until Frozen 2? And what that made the first Frozen so special and popular to so many people? Well, today we find out. So let's dive right on in. Now, I remember when the first Frozen came out to cinemas, and to be honest, it's a good film. I mean, the hype for the film is probably over the top, but I can see why it is. Now, I think the first reason why this film is so popular is because it's a Disney princess movie. And princess movies always do very well for Disney. The princesses themselves, Elsa and Anna, are quite good characters who grow throughout the film and learn to be there for each other by the end. Elsa is scared of her ice powers and eventually loses it and runs away and isolates herself in her ice palace. And Anna, who is a happy ongoing princess, goes after her sister. And I never understand why so many young girls want to be like Elsa. I mean, in a way, she's kind of the villain. I mean, Anna's the one who saves the day, but oh well. Next, we have the music, and that is definitely a massive part of this film. The songs are quite good and catchy. You have some hits like Let It Go, Do You Want to Build a Snowman? You get the point. But eventually you get kind of sick of them after a while because you cannot escape the soundtrack. Overall, the music's good. And the storyline in itself is, in my opinion, probably the best part of the film. The storyline is really well written and knows when to be funny and when to have those emotional moments. I like how it kept the movie a little dark at some points, and that blends really nicely with the music and the themes of the film. All of these things tied together make for a really good film, with its range of funny characters, twists, storylines, music. It sticks a landing. My personal opinion is it's not the best kids film ever made, maybe because I'm not the target audience, but it's still one of the best Disney princess movies. Now, after the global success of Frozen, Disney felt like they had to keep the hype for the film up before Frozen 2 comes out and cash in on it as much as they could. An animated film takes about 6 years to make, so they have to keep up the hype for Frozen for over half a decade. This is when Disney started to release a couple of Frozen shorts to keep the franchise strong. In 2015, they released Frozen Fever, a 7-minute short film. Now, I did watch this short before the making of this video, and it's okay. They released it alongside the remake of Cinderella, and I must say, when this short came out, I have never seen a 7-minute film being advertised so much. It was absolutely ridiculous. Although I have to hand it to Disney because it did keep the Frozen franchise going strong. And then a couple of years later, they released another short, Olaf's Frozen Adventure. And it is the longest short I have ever seen. It's basically a Christmas holiday special with the Frozen characters. It was released in cinemas alongside Coco, but eventually it was pulled from cinemas for being 22 minutes long. Or 22 minutes too long. And even though the film has heart, it was like this unsuccessful attempt to promote Frozen 2, which would be coming out in a couple of years. And alongside the shorts, Frozen merch is one of the reasons why it is so popular, this franchise, because Frozen merch sells shockingly well. Disney could slap Frozen onto anything and it would sell. Literally anything can be branded as Frozen. I mean, come on, look at this stuff. I mean, like, Frozen brand chicken soup. Come on, chicken soup, really? Anyway, then in 2019, Disney finally released Frozen 2. When Frozen 2 came out, it did something that I didn't think they would do, but I'm so glad they did. They made it its own story. It is a common thing with animated sequels to make the sequel like the original. Normally they would just base it off the same plot and story told in a slightly different way. But it still feels very familiar. But with Frozen 2, they gave it its own story that gave the characters new and high stakes to reach for. The first film didn't even really give room for a sequel. It's kind of just one of those they all lived happily ever after, like most Disney films end, meaning I wasn't even sure how they were going to make a new story. But surprisingly, they found a way. The film opened with Elsa hearing a voice, and this causes them to journey to an enchanted forest where they have to try and break this curse alongside finding out all these untold new secrets. I like how the film uncovers some of the untold mysteries from the first Frozen, like Elsa's powers, where the ship that her parents were going headed before they died, and even some questions that no one even asked, but were still interesting. It had the same charm and adventure feeling as the first movie. The songs are probably just as good as the first Frozen, and the character development is done okay. Is it as good as the first one? Well, not in my opinion, no. But that's not saying it is bad at all. It is still a really good film and a nice follow up to the first one. I've seen it once and I wouldn't rush back to see it again, but I enjoyed it. And considering that it did better than the first Frozen at the box office, well, I have to admit, Disney did a good job of keeping the franchise popular. But then I asked the question, who was the target audience for this film? Obviously, it was kids, but if Disney are trying to keep the film franchise relevant throughout the years, the kids who liked the first Frozen and went to go see it in 2013 are not going to be the demographic to go see the sequel in 2019. And I can relate to this. I saw the first Frozen when it came out because I was younger, but when the second one came out, well, I didn't go see it because I was now older. So the kids who went to go see Frozen 2 are most likely new fans of the franchise. So was there any point to try and keep Frozen relevant until Frozen 2? Well, yes and no. I don't think people are going to forget about Frozen that quickly. Frozen has become an icon in so many places and still gets people talking today. Disney didn't need to promote and keep the franchise popular because it's not going to lose popularity. Not anytime soon, at least. Take the original Lion King, for example. That film is now over 25 years old and is still a classic today. But I can see why Disney would want to profit off Frozen, if that's with movies, shorts, toy sales, theme parks, a Broadway musical, and chicken soup. Because it makes sense. It's a great film and they want to cash in on it. It makes money. I think with every new Frozen movie, there will be a new generation of fans. And of course, there will always be the adults that just love their films and go see it anyway. Disney have not announced a Frozen 3 yet, but I can guarantee you that it will happen. And of course, Disney will still try and keep the Frozen brand relevant, but hopefully they only make a Frozen film if they actually have a good idea, like Frozen 2, and not just for a quick cash grab. Now, obviously, I'm not the target demographic for Frozen, so I don't absolutely love it like some other people do, but I do think with its range of funny characters, songs, and storylines, I can definitely see why Frozen is very popular, and I don't think the hype for it will calm down anytime soon, for better or worse. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and give this video a big thumbs up, and I'll see you next Friday.